Alright guys, so it is that time once again, where we take a look at everything that Marvel Studios has announced and has coming at us in the next couple of years, and we look at all the rumors and everything that's been said to be in development, and we chart the next decade of the MCU. So without further ado, let's get to it. Well, yeah, that's mighty impressive for the next 2.5 years. So kicking off right in 2021 is WandaVision. This is the first time Marvel Studios is taking it to the TV realm, focusing on a smaller scale story that will feature Wanda Maximoff and Vision living their ideal life. As the series unfolds, they will reveal new mysteries and cracks in the fabric of time and space, which will ultimately lead to Doctor Strange 2 and the upcoming third Spider-Man film, both dealing with the multiverse. Following the release of WandaVision, right on the heels of that, we take it to the Captain America spin-off, The Falcon and the Winter Soldier, which will see the characters of Bucky Barnes, aka the Winter Soldier, and Sam Wilson, aka the Falcon, take on the returning villain from Captain America Civil War, Baron Zemo, in another geopolitical thriller entry in the Captain America franchise. This time the heroes will be taking on the likes of US Agent John Walker, and multiple other factions throughout Marvel Comics such as Ultimatum. Following that, we take it over to Black Widow, which is the next theatrical release for the MCU, and it is a prequel set before the events of Avengers Infinity War, focusing on Black Widow uncovering a dark past and battling the likes of Taskmaster. And by the looks of it, this franchise will be establishing the very early connective tissues to assemble the Thunderbolts. Along with this, it will also introduce us to the brand new Black Widow for the MCU future after Avengers Endgame, who is Yelena Bolova, who will be returning in another project we will soon talk about. So after another grounded entry, it's time to go all over space and time with Loki releasing in May of 2021. Loki will see the return of the character after he got zapped through time and space in Avengers Endgame, and sees the character come face to face with the Time Variant Authority, who have a connection to Kang the Conqueror, who we will talk about in just a little bit. Here Loki will have to face the consequences of his crimes and go on multiple adventures through different time periods in human history. After that, we go into July, where we will see the release of Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings. The long-awaited debut of Shang-Chi to the MCU is finally happening, and with it, we can more than likely expect one of the best martial arts films in the year. Along with that, they will also further expand the mystery and the origins of the actual Mandarin, include a underground fight tournament that's rumored to be about the future of humanity, and strong rumors suggest that we will be seeing the character of Fin Fang Foom finally make his live-action appearance. After that, we are going to jump on over to Marvel's What If in the summer of 2021. As of right now, we do not know the exact episode count, but the series will be taking us into the multiverse of the MCU, giving us multiple looks as to what could have happened in alternate realities. Featuring one of the first major Fox characters to appear in the MCU with Uatu the Watcher, they are promising interesting twists on established lore and a brand new look at multiple new characters and surprising cameos. After Marvel's What If, we come up to November, where we have the Eternals. The Eternals will take us to the furthest back point in the MCU, showing us some of the earliest superheroes in this universe who helped establish humanity and were once worshipped as gods, and also helped defend us against Celestials, the giant towering beings we previously saw in Guardians of the Galaxy. This film will also introduce the character of Black Knight, who has a connection to Arthurian lore. After about 6 weeks in December of 2021, we are finally getting the third entry in Marvel Studios' Spider-Man franchise, which will see Spider-Man unite with other Spider-Men to take on multiple villains from different franchises. This film will also see them joined by Doctor Strange, and the film is meant to be a bridge between Sony's Spider-Man universe that they're making on the side and the MCU. According to rumors, Sony is also positioning this film as a major starter for multiple multiple franchises they aim to add to their own universe alongside the MCU as well. And speaking of that, because I don't know if we should add them where they go or here, but I figure multiverse talk might as well lump them in because we don't know how they connect as of right now, is Morbius and Venom 2. Morbius quite clearly has Easter eggs that reference the MCU and Spider-Man being wanted for murder, and Venom is directly connected to that film, as well as recent Venom 2 merchandise that would have released alongside the initial release date in fall of 2020 that reveals Venom having a Spider-Man logo and directly referencing Spider-Man in its marketing. The most likely scenario is that Marvel Studios and Sony have an agreement and these will become part of the franchise going forward, as Disney will oversee some of these productions and lend them a hand. Also releasing in the fall of 2021 will be the long-awaited Hawkeye TV series featuring Jeremy Renner back as Ronin, and he's joined by the brand new Hawkeye Kate Bishop being played by Haley Steinfeld. The two will also be joined by Yelena Moldova, aka the new Black Widow, who will at this point have made her first appearance in Black Widow. From what we've seen so far, the series is directly inspired by Matt Fraction's run from the early 2010s, and it looks to place the characters on the run and interacting with multiple other sides of the MCU we haven't seen so far. And last but not least, in 2021 we have Ms. Marvel. The Inhumans are coming back to the MCU, and Ms. Marvel is going to be at the forefront, focusing on Kamala Khan, who is a fanboy of the Avengers. She has now gained her own inhuman powers and must live up to being like the heroes she so much fantasizes about. Rumors and casting suggest that we will see a sort of soft reboot of the Inhumans in the MCU proper in this, and we know the character will be returning down the road. After that, we jump forward to March 25th of 2022, where we will have Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. Doctor Strange will be joined by the Scarlet Witch, along with Baron Mordo returning, and this film will see our heroes going to different corners of the live-action Marvel multiverse, and all of this is supposed to be the result of whatever Wanda did in WandaVision. Multiple rumors have persisted that this might be the first time we see Deadpool, Hugh Jackman back as Wolverine, multiverse versions of previous missed opportunities actors, and tons of other insane cameos and unexpected twists. After that, we only have to wait till May 6th of 2022 until Thor: Love and Thunder, the fourth entry in the Thor franchise, which will see Thor Odinson unite with the Guardians of the Galaxy as they fight Gore the God Butcher, who interestingly enough has a connection to symbiotes, but he's not only going to have to defend himself against Thor and the likes, because they will also be joined by the returning Jane Foster, who will also be playing the character of Thor, who became very popular in the 2010s. Many people that read those comics by Jason Aaron will tell you that this is one of the best storylines they could have gone to because of the humanity they add to Jane due to the fact that every time she turns into Thor, her cancer gets slightly worse, thus giving her a humanity that Thor Odinson himself does not possess. After that, in July 8th of 2022, we have Black Panther 2. This film will not be recasting T'Challa the Black Panther after the passing of the lead actor. Instead, they will be moving forward with a new direction. At one point, it was strongly hinted towards and rumored that we would be seeing Namor the Submariner as the main villain, but due to the fact that the lead actor passed, more than likely changes have been implemented to change the story. What the future for Black Panther holds in the sequel, we're just gonna have to wait and see. The current lead speculation is the fact that his younger sister Shuri is going to become the new Black Panther. After that, we are going to be going to November 11th of 2022, where it looks like we have Captain Marvel 2. This film will see Captain Marvel joined by Monica Rambeau, who will be in WandaVision, and they will both be recruiting the young Ms. Marvel to their intergalactic adventure. According to many rumors, some elements of S.W.O.R.D. will play into this, and this could be used as a backwards way to reintroduce the Inhumans fully into the MCU at the same time. Along with that, in 2022, we will also have Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. Now, this film will see something I referenced earlier with the Council of Kangs, which Loki is a part of with the Time Variant Authority. Kang the Conqueror is one of the biggest villains in Marvel Comics, and what he does with time, space, and trying to bend all sorts of multiverses to his will is certainly going to be interesting. And with a title like Quantumania, you can expect them to be running wild like Hulkamania all over the quantum realm. The film will also see another Young Avengers stature join the ranks. And speaking of joining the ranks, will be She-Hulk. This will be more of a comedy-style series in the MCU, focusing on the She-Hulk, and we will see the return of the Hulk in live action here, along with the Abomination. There's also been multiple teases of seeing other live action Marvel characters finally show up in this series, possibly even return. Characters such as Daredevil have been strongly hinted at. This series is also apparently going to see the live action debut of the Red Hulk, who is Thunderbolt Ross, and it's still rumored that they're setting up the Thunderbolts project for down the road. And since that's what it looks like they're doing in Black Widow, this could be a long payoff that they're building up towards. Another release in 2022 that we can expect to happen is the Guardians of the Galaxy Holiday Special, which will see the Guardians of the Galaxy trying to celebrate the holidays. I think that much is pretty self-explanatory. And speaking of that, going into 2023, we're going to have other Guardians projects, such as the animated I Am Groot, and also the long-awaited and long-delayed Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. Now, in the time that they've been developing this, we don't really know what they're planning to do with it, or if they're going to incorporate any of the long-awaited characters we wanted to see in the MCU from the Fox branches, such as Silver Surfer, but it could be anybody's guess that this is going to be an insane ride that we have all been waiting for eagerly for years. Now, another series that's in development is Moon Knight. We have no concrete release date, but Moon Knight we know is going to be one of the more violent projects from Marvel Studios. It's also going to deal with the schizophrenia and the mental issues that the character Moon Knight Mark Spector has, and at the same time they're looking to go more supernatural and tell us the story of who this character is and the worship for the god Khonshu. And speaking of going supernatural, another project that's been in development that's definitely looking like it's going to start rather soon is Blade. Now, the reboot of Blade is expected to be another darker project for Marvel Studios, starring Mahershala Ali, who we previously saw play Cottonmouth in Luke Cage. Blade is expected to go full-on dark and into the insane side of Marvel that we've never really seen explored in the MCU, and the connective tissue is already being set up there for an inevitable crossover between Blade and Moon Knight. Now, another project that was announced is going to be Ironheart, which we know has been in development for multiple years. Ironheart will see the character of Riri Williams make her own Iron Man suit, which is the best suit that's been made since the passing of Iron Man, and therefore she will get on the radar of some villains and inevitably some Avengers. And one Avenger she's going to get on the radar of is going to be James Rhodes, aka the War Machine, who also has his own show coming out called Armor Wars. This show and Ironheart will be directly interconnected with one another and aim to tell a overarching story. James Rhodes' Armor Wars will also deal with tons of copycat armors and some of Tony Stark's leftovers falling into the arms of the bad guys, and he must stop them at all costs. And another show that's going to tie all of this together, as it's something towards the tail end, will be Nick Fury and Talos returning in the Secret Invasion. Now, the Secret Invasion has been something that's been rumored and in development for quite a while, and we now know that this is going to be something rather big, and they said that all corners of the MCU universe will be explored and touched upon. So when you're watching any of the projects mentioned before this, keep an eye on who exactly might be acting a little bit strange, because you don't know if they might be a Skrull or not. And obviously this series in some way, shape, and form has to connect to Captain Marvel too. So everything that's just been listed will be what's coming out before the end of 2023. Now let's get into some other projects, such as the Fantastic Four, which has been announced and they already have a director confirmed. We do know that John Watts, who is directing the Spider-Man films, will be directing Fantastic Four for Marvel Studios. No other details are known about the Fantastic Four at this time, besides the fact that they're on the slate already and we have a logo. The Fantastic Four will of course be a huge departure for Marvel Studios, as the Fantastic Four bring along with them a whole slew of interesting villains, characters, and the family dynamic, which we haven't seen in any comic book property, well, ever really. And there is also the possibility they could directly tie the Fantastic Four into Ant-Man, Quantumania, and Loki, because in certain continuities and timelines, Kang the Conqueror is a direct descendant of Reed Richards. And since we're on the roll talking about Fox properties coming into the MCU, let's talk about Deadpool, because Deadpool 3 has been confirmed to be in development. It's currently in the writing stages, and they did state that this is in fact Deadpool 3, but also being the third film, it also connects to the MCU. Now, how they're going to do this, whether this is going to be the result of one of the multiple multiverse films or jumping through the quantum realm, we just have to wait and see. Ryan Reynolds will be returning as Wade Wilson, and it looks like they will be joined back by pretty much everybody who can agree to come back from the previous entry. Strong rumors have been running rampant for years that this could be the first time we see Hugh Jackman fully suit up as Wolverine. I'm saying don't hold your breath, but who knows. And it's also going to be interesting to see how they address the confusion with the X-Men, because the mutants are not in the MCU so far, and if they're already bringing in Deadpool, that means they have to address mutants, so how they handle that will be really interesting. And speaking of the X-Men, let's just talk about them right now. We know that the X-Men, along with just bringing the core team into the MCU, also bring in an entire world of their own to be able to play around with. Not only do you have characters like the X-Men, you also have X-Force, you have the New Mutants, you have about 5,000 characters alone to play around with. And one of the first things that was teased in regards to acquiring the entire Fox library was the fact that X-Men will not only be a movie franchise, that they were already thinking about how they could expand them into various other sections, such as TV. So once the X-Men show up, probably by 2025, expect a ton of X-Men everywhere by the end of the decade. Now, of course, speaking of X-Men characters, you can't talk about X-Men and not mention Wolverine. Even though he's not one of the original X-Men, he's pretty much become the spokesperson and the face of the X-Men thanks to the previous 20 years. Wolverine is a guarantee at this point, and I would say sooner rather than later. It really would not surprise me if Wolverine is something that we see before we ever see the X-Men, and then sort of build up a giant crossover with him and the X-Men ultimately uniting, and then obviously crossing over with the Avengers down the road. Now, other projects more than likely to materialize somewhere down the road, since they did say that they're looking at the third Guardians to be a franchise starter for multiple spin-offs. It really would not surprise me if we hear green lights for multiple spin-off Disney Plus series, such as a Rocket and Groot, which James Gunn had previously said he would love to do something with them as a standalone franchise, and also even possibly exploring some other characters like maybe Drax and Mantis. Now, with that in mind, I think Nova is a given at some point. Everybody wants Nova. Everybody's been saying Nova is going to get announced. Every scooper has said it. Nothing has happened so far. I think at this point, something has to happen with that character, and something will by the end of the decade. It's just a foregone conclusion. I would not be surprised if Nova was to appear somewhere like Captain Marvel 2 first, or at least be hinted at. And while we're on the cosmic side of things, I think it's pretty much a given that we're going to be getting Eternals 2 and possibly even Eternals 3 down the road. Because let's be real, there is a lot of history to discover with Marvel Studios' Eternals. They can literally touch upon multiple gone civilizations, different corners of the universe, and as they said, they're going full on into the ancient aliens theory. This is literally a goldmine for characters. Now, when looking at the slate of everything that was announced already, I think we can all agree that we're going to see multiple entries in some of these franchises that are already happening. Multiple seasons for various TV shows, and crossovers are a given. Blade sequels will definitely be happening, more Spider-Mans are a given. how everything connects with Venom and Morbius and whatever Sony is doing is definitely something that I think will be a huge factor going forward. For example, we know that Sony is already developing Silk, and it's going to series by the looks of it on Amazon, and it's already been picked up for a full season. Now, how exactly this is going to be handled, considering Disney has to sign off and be hands-on with all TV productions, will be really interesting. One can safely assume that this is going to be a joint effort with Marvel Studios, because, let's be real, they're already working together on everything from what we understand. There is also the character of Werewolf by Night, which Marvel Studios has actively been working on since 2005. He was supposed to be part of the darker universe that they were setting up on Hulu before all of that got scrapped. Honestly, this character is a perfect fit for a team-up between Moon Knight and Blade, or just being a sidekick or a tag-along for one of those that's going to get an eventual spin-off. And I think there's going to be plenty demand once people get a taste of this character, who's honestly, in my opinion, highly underrated. And speaking of underrated, let's talk about Ghost Rider. The series was supposed to be something over on Hulu that was ultimately scrapped by Marvel Studios. The moment that happened, we already started to hear rumors that Marvel Studios and Feige had plans for that character down the road. Now, with them already setting up Blade and Moon Knight, this is definitely another member of the Midnight Suns that fits that mold. 100% will not be surprised if within 5 to 6 years we see Ghost Rider guest star on one of the other series, and then fully go on to have his own Disney Plus spin-off. Or possibly even a giant Ghost Riders team-up would make sense. And speaking of characters that were canceled that fans demand back, we have Daredevil. Now, what happens with Daredevil, where he shows up next, or if he's ever brought back, we still don't know. There's plenty of rumors of the character appearing in the upcoming She-Hulk, and it's been teased by people working on the show, so hopefully this is something that happens. Now, along with Daredevil coming back, I think if they were to bring him back, you can probably expect multiple other characters to come along with him from the Defenders brand, probably in a reboot fashion. Characters like Luke Cage, Iron Fist, Jessica Jones, and the Punisher all have their fan bases. And at least bringing those characters back in some sort of fashion for a giant team-up, or making them have new spin-offs down the road would make sense. And now some other projects I think are more or less a given in some way, shape, or form are something like the New Avengers or the Young Avengers. This makes sense if you look at all the pieces they're placing on the chessboard, with multiple Young Avengers already joining other projects, such as America Chavez joining Doctor Strange 2. By decade's end and multiple film build-ups, I think the next big bad is definitely going to be Galactus. This is your ultimate goal. This is the one that unites everything, from the biggest powerhouses in the universe like the Eternals, to the Silver Surfer, to all the X-Men, all the Guardians, all the Avengers, Multiverse, Spider-Man, Venom, and everything. They all unite to save Earth and the universe from Galactus. Which leads me into the ultimate project we are probably going to get in the next decade, which has been directly teased by directors, by Marvel Studios, and pretty much everybody involved. The Secret Wars. This is your go-to when you've completed everything, when you want to soft reboot, when you want to tell new Captain America stories with Steve Rogers, but Chris Evans is too old and you've already exhausted everything. You soft reboot the entire universe with Secret Wars. You tie everything back around. You essentially do what a Crisis did for DC, and you sort of start all over, but you pick up the threads with some of the characters remembering, and you have a blank canvas to retell some classic stories, but also have a fresh way to use old characters and recast them freely. So overall, there you go guys, that's about the next decade worth of everything Marvel.